JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. So let's cover the EIDL and the grants related to that. I'm going to put a link in the body of this video to the SBA website talking about the EIDL, also on their website, separate page talking about the EIDL grants, supplemental, targeted, etc., FAQs. And on those pages will also be links to what I'm going to talk about as it relates to the portals and the mapping and whatnot. But I've got behind me an overall list of what I'm going to go over in this update. I'm also going to put a link in here to a playlist that has all of my EIDL related videos. And before we get going, if you'd like, go ahead and take a screenshot of this, and you can either follow along as I'm going, or you can just refer back to it, or you can just look at it and guess at what the update is. But let's get into the EIDL portion, the loan aspect of this. And on the update, I want to make sure you're aware that if you got the disbursement in 2020, your loan deferment is 24 months in terms of payments and when interest starts to accrue. And your loan deferment is 18 months if your loan is dispersed in 2021. There is the increase to the $500,000 now. So for those of you that already applied, you can request the increase. You're probably aware of that. You would request the increase in the portal where you originally signed for your loan. Now, if you're whatever reason can't log into your portal, you forgot that, then go to the EIDL webpage that I'm giving you a link to, and you'll see right there what you do, how you contact them, how you can search for the email, etc., to get back into your portal to request the increase. The SBA has actually officially released on how that calculation is being done, which is this. So the math is taking your gross receipts minus your cost of goods sold, and then whatever that is, be gross profit in my world, but gross receipts minus cost of goods sold, dividing that by 12 to basically come up with a monthly average, and then you're multiplying it by 24 months. And then the loan is either that amount or $500,000, whichever is less. So in essence, you're getting your gross receipts minus cost of goods sold, whatever that figure is for a year. The loan is 2 years of that amount. So the way they describe the math is this. So you can work through that on your own. And the thing to note is with the EIDL, there are 3 portals. So there's the portal where you logged in to confirm your identity, accept the loan, sign the loan documents. That's one portal. Once you're done with that aspect, that portal now is used to request the increase. But in essence, that portal, that login, is just about getting the loan and then signing the documents related to that. The second portal that you're going to want to log into is the tracking of your loan. It's basically like where your statement is, how much you owe as you're paying it down, what's the principal due, etc. So you're going to want to log in and set that up now, and in essence, get that where you're able to track it. Again, in the body of the video here, I'm giving you a link to the SBA website, and clearly on there, they indicate you will go here to be able to set it up so that you can track the loan. And then there's a third portal that you need to, in essence, set up. And that is a portal where you make the payment. So you won't, in the second or first portal that I've just talked about, you won't make payments in either of those portals. You're going to make payments in a different, separate portal. That's the third portal. And you're making a payment to the United States government. So it's going through that portal. And again, in the body of this video, you will find a link directly to where you can set up your account, if you will, set up the portal to be able to make your payment. So you should just go ahead and get those things done now. Just a reminder that the uses of the EIDL is ongoing expenses only. So operating expenses. If it's not something that you're routinely spending money on, and annual dues would be routine, then it's not an approved use of the EIDL loan proceeds. So you can't pay yourself back. You can't pay out dividends. You cannot refinance loans with it. Now, if you are putting business expenses on a credit card, you can pay off that credit card for the business expenses that are ongoing expenses. But the EIDL is not to then go buy assets. It's not to expand your business. It's not an opportunity to get money to then improve your business. The economic injury disaster loan, the proceeds are to help your business sustain and move forward and get all the way back on its feet. So I have some specific videos that will go more in detail on that with its own links on where that information comes from. One of the things that I think is different as a certified public accountant, me practicing now for 28 years, is that anytime I can give you a link to the actual source of information, I'm giving it to you. So it's great to listen to people, and most people are trying their best to give you great information. I have no comment if anybody else's information is good or not, but really the best source of any information is directly at the source, which is the SBA. And the reason I'm teeing that up for you is that now I'm going to talk through the grants here. And this is fast moving. Right now, I will tell you on the date that this video is being released on July 5th, it's being reported that the SBA is saying all qualified businesses now can apply for the EIDL targeted grant and the EIDL supplemental grant. I can't find that anywhere that the SBA has said that. I found one article where there was a supposed interview of the SBA director that the SBA director is saying we're soon going to encourage. I've seen several articles. None of them at this moment are from huge mainstream, world-known publications that are reporting this. It's local stations, and they're indicating that it's now open to all qualified businesses. I do know of a couple of circumstances where somebody has claimed that they applied for the first time for the EIDL this year, and then they just very recently got an email invite to apply for these grants, which is great. It doesn't mean anything to you because you cannot apply for these until the SBA invites you to apply for them. So if you get the email to invite you to apply for these, you have to meet the qualifications of the targeted grant or the supplemental targeted grant. Well, then go ahead and apply for it if you need it. And then, of course, you'll have to qualify for it. So the bottom line is that the SBA, as of the date of this video release, July 5th, if you go to the link that I'm giving you in the body of this email called EIDL Grant FAQs, it was last updated April 27th of 2021. The reason I'm telling you that is because this is fast-moving information. I've given you a link not to the PDF, but I've given you a link to the page that includes the FAQs in all older versions. So when you click on that, if at the time you click on it, which could be later than July 5th, if it indicates that the FAQs are newer than the 27th of April, then you know that they've been updated. But nowhere on the website have I found yet where they've opened this up to all qualified businesses. But guess what? No one needs to argue about it. Doesn't matter what this person said or that person said or that article. All that matters is you'll need to get an invitation because, again, that's the only way that you can apply for these because it's for those that applied for the EIDL. Now, the one that's a little risky that I've been reading in a couple of articles, again, none of them mainstream articles, is that it's indicating that you can now apply for an EIDL if you haven't previously applied for an EIDL to then be considered for the grants. Well, I walked through all the steps of the EIDL loan right directly at the SBA website, walked through all the steps right up to submit this application, and nowhere on there does it have a box to check to say, I'd like to be considered for the grants. Why is that important? Well, in 2020, last year, when you were applying for the EIDL, there was just the EIDL grant. And that expired in 2020. Okay? That expired because it just ran out of money. It's about August of 2020. So up until that point, when you were filling out the application for the EIDL, there was a box to check to say, I'd like to be considered for the grant. What I'm telling you is, July 5th, when I go, there's nothing in there. The SBA indicates in the FAQs that you have a link to, dated April 27th, that it says, do not reapply for an EIDL. And it says, in essence, you're not going to get a grant by just now applying for the EIDL. And when you read the FAQs, my pretty clear conclusion is the grants that we're talking about here that are now available, the targeted and the supplemental, are only available to those that got an EIDL on or before December 27th. Now, I agree, and hopefully what you're following here is that I'm giving you a big link here to say, hey, when you go to this link, this video won't be outdated, because when you go to the link, if you find FAQs newer than April 27th, then that's going to have the latest in there, and it potentially then would tell you, well, if you hadn't applied for an EIDL, you don't want the EIDL, but you want the grants, well, then here's how you do it. All I'm saying is there's no real clear way yet that the SBA has said, hey, if you don't have an EIDL, but you want these two grants, here's how you do it. So what I would caution you on is that if you're reading an article and it says, hey, go and apply for the EIDL if you haven't applied before to then get the grant, I'd be cautious of that, only from the standpoint of you're applying for a loan. And yes, as you can see, the qualification for both of these is that you have to be an EIDL applicant to be able to get the loan. And to get the grants. You have to be an EIDL applicant to even get either one of these grants. I don't see anywhere on the SBA website where they now have waived that you have to be an EIDL applicant. The thing to note, I'm going to repeat myself for the third time on this to say is, guess what? For now, how do you even get these grants, the targeted and the supplemental? The the SBA sends you an email and invites you. So still, there's nothing you can do to start this on your own. It's always, as we've been dealing with the targeted and supplemental, you've never been able to do anything to go and apply until you got the email inviting you to apply. So if you got the email, then apply for it. Again, if you need it, okay? Just because they're handing out water bottles, well, if you got a trunk full of water bottles, you don't need to go grab another free water bottle, okay? There's plenty of other businesses out there that do need these funds. It's not unlimited. So you do need to, even if you meet all the qualifications, in my opinion, you need to still need the money, in essence, in my opinion, to take it. Yes, you're right. You meet these qualifications, you can get the money. I'm just saying as an opinion on that part. Now, let's talk about these three different grants. Now, this one has expired, meaning it's no longer in existence. That's just your plain vanilla EIDL grant. Many called it the advance. So the EIDL grant and the EIDL advance, those in essence were the same thing, synonymous, expired last year. We have the targeted grant, and on the targeted grant, it's for those businesses that have 300 or less employees and To qualify, you would have gross revenues that reduced at least 30% in a very short period of time, but it reduced down 30% in an 8-week period starting March 2nd, 2020 or after. And then you have to be in a low-income community, and the SBA has put together a map where you can look up the address of your business and determine if your business is in a low-income community. Unfortunately, the SBA has made it clear that you might be a business serving customers in a low-income community, but that doesn't qualify you. That's directly in the FAQs that you have a link to. But on the targeted grant, the thing to note is that it's up to $10,000, just the same as the original grant advance, up to $10,000. So why is this up to $10,000 and you've put it on both here? So little history, when the EIDL was then granted for those that were having economic injury related to COVID, at the time they extended this EIDL grant to the applicants, and it was a grant equal to $1,000 for each employee, maximum $10,000. That was something that the SBA kind of implemented on their own to help preserve monies to help more businesses. So in 2020, when you applied for the EIDL, unless you were one of the very, 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 very first ones, because the very, very, very first ones, I had 2 clients that applied immediately for the EIDL, and they got the full $10,000, even though they didn't have 10 employees. But very soon, so 99.9% of those that applied for the EIDL in 2020 only got this original grant, this original EIDL advance. It was $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000. So if you had 4 employees, you only got $4,000. So now with the targeted grant, you still have to meet these qualifications, but it's still only up to $10,000, but you have to add together 1 and 2. So grant 1 is the original, and grant 2 here, this is me naming them 1 and 2, the targeted grant. So it's a max $10,000 of both grants. So it's not $20,000. It's a max $10,000 when you add them together. So the example, just giving you an example. So somebody had 2 employees and they applied for the EIDL in 2020, and they got the $2,000, $1,000 per employee. They got a $2,000 EIDL grant. Now, this would be somebody that was sent an email by the SBA inviting them to apply for the targeted grant. They met these qualifications. So if they meet those qualifications, then the SBA would send the remaining of the $10,000 or $8,000, but there's a $10,000 max. Okay? So for those of you that like to, I'm wiping it away. For those of you that, if you're perplexed, I'll let you see the board again. If you're a little perplexed, then just run through another example. If you got 0 because the money ran out, you got 0 of the original grant, and then you qualify for the targeted grant, then you're going to get $10,000. If you got 10,000 in the original grant, you're going to get 0 here, even if you qualify for it. If you have 5 employees and you got $5,000, and you then qualify for the targeted grant, you would get $5,000. Point is that of both of these things, the max you're going to get is $10,000. Any way you roll these dice, you're only going to get up to $10,000. They've come out here several months ago, but they have the targeted supplemental grant, and that's an additional flat $5,000. Now, to qualify for the supplemental grant, you have to be an EIDL applicant, you have to have 10 or less employees, and you need to have a gross revenues reduction of 50% in any 8-week period starting March 2nd, 2020 or after. And you also have to be in a low-income community. So of course, if you are qualifying for this, then you would have qualified for that. So I do know of one person, they've applied for both. They got this, they didn't get any of this. And what was solved was, well, they got 10 grand of this. So they already got their 10,000 in 2020. So even though they qualified, they applied, they were sent an invitation, they applied for the targeted grant. Well, they didn't get any more because they already got 10 grand. But then they qualified and applied for the targeted supplemental grant and got the $5,000 here. Obviously different criteria, as in a smaller pool that's going to qualify for that. But the thing to note is that there's 3 grants. One of them's expired in 2020. Then we have the targeted grant, and then we have the targeted supplemental grant. All 3 of those grants added together, the max that you're going to get is $15,000 of any and all of these grants. Now this one down here is just a flat 5 grand, but when you add it all together, you're only going to get a max 15,000. So just following my example, if somebody got $2,000 originally, they qualify for that, then they get the $8,000. So they get the rest of the $10,000. So they got a $10,000 max, right? They got it all. And then they qualify for that. Well, it's just 5,000. Add it all together, it's 15,000. So roll the dice any way you want on here. They could have got 5,000 and 5,000. It's still a max 10. They could have got 10,000 here, 0 here. So they got 10 grand here, 0 here. They got 5 there. It's still max 15,000. So any way you want to slice this up, these grants, the max that is given out is $15,000. The targeted grant and the supplemental targeted grant is not $1,000 per employee. Okay. Basically, this up here, the one in 2020, was the only one that was based on the number of employees. That's why some didn't get the full 10 grand. The targeted grant came in to go, okay, listen, you were supposed to get the full 10 grand just flat, regardless of the number of employees, because it's how it was originally. But since you didn't get the full 10 grand, if you qualify here, we'll give you the rest of the 10 grand. So whatever you didn't get, we'll give you the rest. Now there's a number of applicants that applied after the funds ran out in August of 2020. So there's lots of applicants. They didn't get any of that. So then when they applied for the targeted grant, met the qualifications, well then they got the 10 grand. And then if they meet these qualifications, they got the additional $5,000, still a max altogether of $15,000. Now open to all qualified businesses. This will be the 4th time I've said it, is the SBA is not going to steer you wrong. If you get the invitation, that means that the SBA initially is inviting you to apply. You still got to meet these qualifications. You still got to fill out the application. You still have to provide the information. Again, in the body of this video, I'm giving you a link to the SBA website, the EIDL page, as well as the EIDL grants covering all of this, giving you a link to the FAQs. The FAQs will say April 27th. If you then click on it and it says a later date, then you then have the most recent FAQs, which would be great. I'm going to give you a link to the map so you can figure out if you're in a low-income community, because that's a hurdle. I'm going to give you a link to where you can log into or set up your portal to track your loan. Remember, there's the 3 portals. You got to now track the loan and then set up the portal, set up the information to make payments on the loan, even though they're not going to be due for a while. So I've got lots of links in there. Of course, a link to my playlist on other EIDL items. So a lot of information covered there. You probably took a screenshot at the beginning, but I'll pop to the side here if you just want to take a screenshot. just to have it available to you. So hopefully this was helpful for you. I sure appreciate you tuning in. If you made it to here and you're not a subscriber, I've been doing this for 28 years. I have my own CPA practice. I have some other businesses. So the videos that I'm putting together are for my clients in essence. It's information that I'm gathering and advising of my own clients. So this information here, I've done it in the trenches with my clients. And so I think I bring a little different maybe twist. And if you made it to here, I appreciate you. I'd love it if you'd subscribe. I don't get paid based on subscriptions. It doesn't cost you anything. But as a CPA, I like to see the numbers go up. Looks like I've got a sunglasses on right here. I've got, what do they call, a raccoon little sunburn going on here. All right, hey, I appreciate you. It's about 1:30 in the morning, so technically, happy July 4th, even though this is not going to get released till July 5th. And the day that this gets released, it is Amanda's birthday, so happy birthday to Amanda. All right, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd subscribe, and then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. Have a great one.